Hello everybody and Happy New Year. I just wanted to make a demonstrational video of how to illustrate mail because I've had a few questions in the past regarding this and how to, I suppose, properly illustrate mail armor and how to get, well, I suppose, a realistic rendition of what it could look like when illustrating it. So, two things I want to put across is how the mail is attached to the body and what the mail links are and how that looks um, upon the body. That 4:1 ratio of mail armor, usually kind of Western European style, that is riveted, during the medieval period. And so what I usually do is look to see who else has illustrated mail and photo reference and see if I can get some myself. I own a bit of mail armor myself, and I sometimes use that as reference. Um, and it's also good to get other reference because not all mail looks the same. So I shall put this up. My favorite historical artist is a guy called Graham Turner, and his stuff pops up a lot everywhere. I'm sure some of you guys who are into historical art are familiar with Graham Turner's work. He's a great artist, and I certainly enjoy studying and looking at his artwork and how he approaches certain things like mail armor. So I could just about get some high quality um, images and high quality enough to actually see what he's done with the mail. And it's quite obvious here that he knows how mail armor works on the body, what kind of weave pattern it makes on the body when it's attached. I mean, he's even illustrated here like the typical 13th century style lacing that goes over the wrist. But other than that, he knows how it works in light, how it reflects in certain environments. And you can see here in a 14th century Battle of Cressy, I think this is King John the Second, I think, maybe, I don't know. So with this male Aventail here, he knows how the weave pattern works with mail, how it goes around the body, how it makes certain creases as well, and you can see it down here a little bit as well in the shadow, and you get these little dinks of light and things like that. I think he works in either gouache or oils, so it's very different to when you work with it in like a digital format. But it's a similar approach. You can tell here he's made a base layer of all the rings, and then over the top of that he's added shadow and light. So a very standard approach to illustrating in general, but it works nonetheless. And you can tell here that he knows that mail armor is tailored. None of it sags. It's, in some certain cases, especially this early 13th century knight here, he would have had tailored mail. So it's good to see what other artists do to kind of judge your approach and what you think you should do in terms of illustrating mail. And it's also good to see what historically other artists have done. I've made a video on this way back on even effigies, knightly effigies, and how they made their approach to actually carving mail in stone, and then also painting it, and more realistic versions of painting armor in the the Renaissance period, maybe a little earlier to that, late 15th century style artwork, when it becomes a little more realistic. So what I'm going to do here is show you how I approach it, and with a male guy in a male coif. So this is a typical, I suppose, Morgan Bible period, mid 13th century style. But even then, it is just male, and this goes through the medieval period, and I'm going to illustrate how that kind of works. So let's get a new layer up here. I'm just going to communicate across how mail actually is attached to each other. It's that 4-in-1 pattern. So you've got one link here, and then it's attached to 4 others. So, and it loops either over or under, and then you get this pattern here. So they're all going into each other, or they're all the other 4 links are going into the one link in the center there, and that obviously it's a pattern that, you know, is ever occurring, and it can just continues on and on. And when it comes to tailoring, making like V sections, or, you know, bringing down the mail along the arm or something like that, it's either sometimes laced, and sometimes it's not actually tailored at all, and it actually sags on the upper arms. You know, there's some cases of that. However, sometimes there are 2 links, you know, to create a tighter format, and bring in the mail to tailor it in a little bit. So that's quite a brief description, and then, you know, I can somehow, I'll tell you what, I'll bring a bit of a lighter tone to this so you can see what I'm doing. It is a 3D object, mail. It's a weaving pattern, and they're all linked to each other. So if I did these over the top of each other, I might mess this up a little bit. There you go. So they're all interlocking rings. So that one goes over the top like that. Hang on a minute, that doesn't work. There you go. That one goes over that. It's much easier when it's a tight mesh. It's easier to communicate across, and then over the top of that you get, you know, you get those rivets. So it's a much thicker mesh, and, you know, it also depends on whether it's wire made or it's flat riveted. Also there's dome rivets and wedge rivets as well, and then there's butted mail as well, which is less common, more common in Asian countries, and poorly constructed reconstruction of mail, but mostly, I don't know whether I did that goes through. Mostly it's riveted with a rivet of some kind, you know. And when you illustrate this in a painting, I'm sure you won't need to go full on detailed like this, where you're actually illustrating where the rings are going through and what's going under and over. You can do that, and there's also brushes you can use, but I think that's a big shortcut, and it actually works better if you put that little bit of extra time into it, to illustrating the mail, and doing each link individually, especially if you're doing an up close painting. Further away, did I keep my, yeah, I kept my art pieces here. So you got the guy in the foreground here, and I mostly did every link, and that sounds very time consuming, but you can see how it pays off further away. And the guy in the midground here, I didn't do every link. I did all the reflecting links, so you get the weaving pattern with all these semicircles and bits of highlight and shadow and stuff like that. And then the guy in the further in the background here is quite rough. It is really quite rough on how I actually illustrated every link. I still went through and did layers of shadow and light to further illustrate, what the male is doing in that particular moment. And then again here with another painting. Yeah, I did every single link pretty much. Not to a completely accurate degree, but enough so that when you look at it further away, you get that nice little texture of male and the little dinks of reflecting light on certain rings, because that's what happens. Going back to the study, so what I'm going to do, I might speed up this bit, but what I'm going to do is add a base layer that's quite darker, and then over the top I'm going to put a very low mid-tone of like a base layer of where all the links are and how they are going around the face of the male coif and around the skull, and I'll do the neck as well. So here we go. Okay, so I've gone through the head of the male coif, and I've created almost like a grid system within the sort of C-shape circles that I've created and going around the head. Some of them aren't exactly completely C-shaped, because you want to get that foreshortened effect and kind of like a wrapping around the body. So next thing I'm going to do is create C-shapes going in the opposite direction, just like here. So you've got one dimension here, a direction, sorry, and the other direction going the other way, of the weaving pattern that male creates with that 1x4 pattern, and the fact that it's a metal links and they'll be kind of going in different angles. It's not a flat mesh It's more 3D than you think it is. And so I'm going to go through then through it all over again, and add in the links to link up all the mail, and that will be the base layer, and I'll come back to you then. Okay, I'm back now. So what I've done is I've done every other link, and I've also added in a cord, because that was quite a common thing that happened during the medieval period when fastening mail to keep it tighter to the body so it doesn't sag and it's loose and it gets in the way. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll do this in real time now, is add another layer. There we go. On top of the layer I'm actually painting on top of, because all of this is all on one layer at the moment. And then I'm just going to add on top a lighter tone using the soft brush. Let's make that overlay. That's the mode of the layer. Let's say that the sun is coming in on the top right there. It'll be coming down here. Add some balancing light onto the edge and onto the edge here. So there'll be a bit of light cast down here. I'm going to add a little bit of a wrinkle there, a little bit of a wrinkle there, and a little bit of a wrinkle there, because mail does fold over each other, all the links do, and just like with fabric, it creates folds, and it is worth studying a little bit into kind of textiles and fabric and see how they how cloth folds over itself. And then I'm going to add in the darker tones. Now this is going to be a bit more obvious because I'm creating a base layer to work on top of, so I can create my highlights. And all I'm doing here is adding in depth of tone with my overlay layer, just to create more of a 3D object. I've got my base layer to work with, and I'm going to be going over the top again. Get rid of what I'm not actually working on here, on that face as well. And this cord. So yeah, it's the mail is going over a 3D object here. In this case it's a head, and it needs to act accordingly to the light that it's reflecting off. It's also a metal object, and I'll go into that a little bit later, but so far I just want to add in tonal depth and the foreshortening of the mesh going around the head. So I've done that. The next thing I'm going to do is create a new layer, go over the top again, almost every single link, and add in a highlighting layer that will emphasize certain parts of the rings, and I'll demonstrate that now. I'll make this part of the video a bit faster, just so I can get through it all. So I shall be right back. Okay, now I've done that, I'm going to go over it again on another layer and just add in some tonal value with the soft brush again, just to go over the highlights that I've done, dampen them down a little bit. Just because every hang on, have I got a soft brush here? No, I don't. Yeah, just to dampen down those highlights, because not every single chink in the armour is going to be absolutely highlighted. A little bit up here as well. And just a little bit on the edge here. Let's just add in those mid values a little bit further. Okay. So what I'm going to do again is illustrate over again, but I'm going to add in kind of real highlights and sort of dinks. When I mean dinks, I mean like a ring that's actually highlighted, especially much more than the other links in the mail. So yeah, I shall speed this up again, and I'll get back to you once I've pretty much finished this. So I'll get back to you soon. Okay, I'm back now, and here we have a sort of finished piece in. This is in grayscale, of course. When you do this in color, it also matters what the environment is to get the reflection of the rings and what kind of colors you want to pick up in the surrounding area. Anyway, so I added the highlights to the very end, and I had a little bit of shading just to stop that highlight on the crown of the head to really look like it's airbrushed in. So yeah, there's this is the sort of method I usually take when I illustrate male. It obviously depends on how far away the character is, how close the character is. This is a fairly close portrait, so it's worth doing that extra bit of detail, spending that bit of time into getting those links looking like they're meshed together to form, the armor. And this particular style is the, say, Morgan Bible period, so like 1240, 50, that kind of period. Of course, male coifs of this type spanned quite a bit of time, and until great helms underneath them performed bassinets, early forms of bassinets, and then the Aventail was more important in the end. Anyway, so here we go. If you have any questions, please do ask. I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to do another video like this in the future if you have any questions in illustrating any armor really, or weapons, getting them accurate to a degree, because there is a lot of misconceptions out there in terms of the structure of mail, how it's formed, how to illustrate it properly, and there are some really rough techniques that I usually think would be much better, just adding that extra bit of time to communicate across what the material is. So yeah, I shall see you guys on the next video. Stay safe and have a good one. Bye bye.